Joseph said when he pulled on the reins and stopped his pair of mules in the wagon down near Cookton, he stopped and looked over at Ida and said, "Mama, look at that grass. It's as high as a horse's shoulders." And like Joseph Smith, when he led the Mormons into Salt Lake, Joseph said, "This is the place." And they got down out of that wagon and homesteaded that 160 acres. Cooperton, Oklahoma. It's not on the map. You probably couldn't find it if you weren't a member of the family. But you talk about pioneers. The Newton family were pioneers. And from those tough two people came those 5 wonderful children. Parents were not educated, but they taught those children every day and in every way the things that were more important than what they could have learned at any university in the state. Integrity, hard work, truth, love, devotion, sharing, and I could go on and on. First time I went down there, just before we got to the house, I looked over and a big old grove of dead trees just full of buzzards. And I thought, where in the world am I going? I saw this little pitiful house. Not another house in sight in any direction. I mean, they were alone. As Paul Joe so eloquently said, they had no one but themselves. And so they leaned on each other. Everybody had to help. And nobody was reluctant in giving that help. They built a strong family, and they all went their separate ways, far more successful than their parents ever dreamed. Not because they got a college education or a master's degree or even a doctorate, but because of the ethics that their parents had instilled deep down inside. It's in the Newton DNA. Let's go forward. That was 100 years ago. Wow. 1957, Larry and Beth and I, Beth was 1, moved up 4658 North Trenton, little 1 garage, 1 bath, $10,000 home, and right across the street was Lea and Skip, Susan and Nancy. No, Nancy hadn't come over yet. No. Susan and Brussy. In the first few days, we look out the window, and this guy would come home at noon, go in, have lunch, and every day without fail, out would come Lea, walk him to the car, he'd roll the window down, she'd let him in and give him a kiss, and off back to work he'd go. Every morning, just before 8, prissy little girl with a brand new frock of some kind that her mother had made out the door, she came up the street, turned right, down to the little schoolhouse. Lea was a wonderful seamstress, and she loved so much making dresses for Susan and Nancy. After they put the kids to bed every night, you'd see Lea go sit on the sofa. Skip come out with a tray with a couple of glasses, pour a little wine. I'm sure I couldn't hear it, but I knew, put a record on the turntable, and they'd be out there dancing in the living room. And a few days later, after we met them out in the yard and started to be a friendship, she said, and what we were seeing, both had big picture windows and we had no shrubs. Our buildings were cheap. She said, all I could see is this young skinny guy over there. I was playing John Philip Sousa leading the band. And she said, I saw this little teenage girl with a little 1-year baby walking around on the front porch and around the yard. Well, it wasn't long till we were over there every Saturday night playing pitch. We couldn't afford to go to the theater or out to Cheddar's or Fish Daddy's or even to McDonald's, which I'm not sure we had one back then. Lee was a competitor. She couldn't stand it when Skip and I beat her and Lurley. And if Lurley would play the wrong cards, Lurley, why did you play that card? You should have played this one. Well, Skip was working hard and I was working hard, trying to dig our way out of the poverty we both grew up in. We still were living paycheck to paycheck. But as time went on, we got a few raises, a few promotions. The Youngs moved over to Mountain Manor and built a new home. The Nashes moved down South Tulsa, 59th place in Lewis or Utica. And we didn't see each other every day. But we still stayed in contact. They would come over to our places every few weeks. We'd go over to Mountain Manor. Till 1973 rolled around. Back in my gray matter I was working at Bank of Oklahoma, been there 7 years, and was traveling for them, calling on other banks all over the Southwest. And I was seeing a lot of things in the little community banks that I didn't think were being done very well. And I say to myself, oh, if I had a bank, I would do that different and a whole lot better. Well, those thoughts kept maturing until one day I said, I think I can put a group together and we can build a bank at 71st and Lewis, where my brother owned the land. So he was the first one I went to see. Went to the state, got a charter, started building a building. Now we need some people. The first one I found was Mary B. May. Out of an ORU basketball game, sitting up in the stands at halftime, I went over and I said, the Lord led me over to tell you that you need to go to work with me at the United Bank. So she said, he didn't give me the message. But with some persuasion, she agreed. The second person that Ed and Earl recommended I hire was Lea Young. Now, remember, neither one of these girls have ever worked at a bank a day in their lives. Neither one of them were highly educated, but both of them were highly intelligent, highly motivated, good communicators, loyal to the end of the earth. Contacted Lee and said, I want you to come. Go to work with me. We're going to start this new bank down at 71st and Lewis. And she agreed. She said, what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to run the proof machine. She said, what is that? I didn't know much better than she did. But it's a machine you put every single check through and you put in the amount down in the bottom. And with those characters across the bottom, then that check can go through equipment anywhere in the world and they know whose account it was, how much it was, and where it goes to. Well, she worked there longer than any of us. After we sold the bank 10 years later and I left, she was still there. But she wasn't a clerk anymore. She was a senior vice president. Oh, Joe, I just gave her a promotion.
Yeah, right. Fine.
And she trained all the girls that Mary B. and I hired. Mary was in charge of personnel. And they all loved her, loved her, loved her.
Yeah.
She, I think, was probably the most popular person in the bank. And I've been getting emails and messengers today from different ones that work for her saying, I wish I could be there, but I'm out of town, or I'm at the dentist, or I wish I could be there to honor Lea Young, who meant so much in my life. I've been with Lee on a lot of happy occasions. also been by her side on some very sad occasions. Like the day she got the phone call that her dad and sister-in-law had been killed in a head-on crash. And she said, would you please get Lurley and let's go out and find Mabel and tell her I don't think I can do it by myself. And we did, and a few days later we went to the funeral. And a sight I'll never forget as long as I live. During the service, a neighbor came out in overalls with a fiddle and stood there by the coffin and played Faded Love.
Oh.
How precious. How special. By her side when she put her husband in the grave, her daughter. And I'd take your pain away today, Rosie. And Susan, if I could. Only way I could do that is take away your memory. And you wouldn't have me do that because in your memory is where she still lives. Wonderful, classy lady. And I'm the one that talks a lot. Lurley's the one that thinks a lot. And she jotted down some thoughts that she wanted to share with family and friends of Lee today. And if you would indulge me, I'd like to read Lurley's thoughts. In the first paragraph, she addresses to Lee. She said, why am I here, Lee? I'm speaking about you and how much I loved you and how much I needed you in my life, and you are no longer part of my world. That makes me so very sad, and my heart aches because I'm lonely for you, and I always will be. You were my dearest friend for 60 years. What will I do when I need someone that really loves me to help me find my way through whatever it is that's troubling my heart and mind? You were always willing to listen and really hear what was at the heart of my struggle, and were prepared to help me cuss the cause. Whatever their name was, or if you felt I was at fault, you told me so in a way that I could not ignore. I remember vividly coming to you at a time when I felt overwhelmed with my life and knowing it was not going to change. The feeling that I was unable to carry on as if all was well. You said, well, Ed and Earl, what are you going to do about it? I said to her that I'd just keep on smiling, and I did. And here I am, bowed, but not unbroken, but not broken. And then, not addressing Lee directly, she says, it's impossible to talk about Lee without talking about yourself, because that was how we came to know who she was, and to know that back of those great cheekbones was a brain full of wisdom. She was the only person I've ever known that made a beautiful photo, even on her driver's license. When I first met Lee, I was only 20. She was 32. We were just beginning our role as wives and mothers, and we were often unsure about the best way to do things. She helped me a lot because she had a head start. She'd laugh lovingly at me at times, and I'd do the same. We did what we thought was best, and worked out pretty good. Well, that was the beginning of a 60-year journey we made together in our thoughts and talks. And now she's not here, and I don't like having to finish the journey without her. When we first met, I was wearing saddle oxfords, and she was swishing that wild red hair and looking in the mirror at her freckles. We both were able to improve our image over the years. I think Lee was born sophisticated, because I know she didn't learn that look and sound in Cooperton. Unlike like many numbers people like me, she loved talking about ideas and beliefs and personal struggles. This was a godsend in my life, and I might add in Bill's too. She taught me to ask why. Sounds simple, but it can complicate your life tremendously, but you'll be the better for it. Growing up, we've been encouraged not to ask why. Bill was actually discouraged from asking why. When it had to do with religion, it was almost as if people were afraid you could out-question God. She dispelled that notion. This was one of the finest things she ever did for me. She was so smart and unafraid to try to learn new things and more difficult things, and was so pleased when she succeeded. There's no good stopping place when talking about Lee and her impact on my life. But there are a few words that I think she gave special meaning to. The first one Paul Joe mentioned, love. If you ever were loved by Lee, you knew the true definition of the word. Wisdom. She had an overload of this, and it helped me in some of the ways I like best about myself. As Paul Joe also said, family. Her children were precious beyond words. There was no one like Susan or Nancy or Martin. She'd tell you so with a smile. And everyone here has heard us say, my sister Mabel or my sister Clyda, and of course her sweet little brothers Joe and Johnny. And when she spoke of her mama and daddy, there was a sound in her voice that would bring tears to your eyes. I was almost jealous of them, but you just knew that there was no one on earth more dear to her than family, and especially her Skip. Her every wish was his command. And the final word is fair. Life wasn't, and she knew this and didn't like it, but she accepted it and dealt with it and said in a kind but direct way that we should do the same. Well, it's past time for me to close and just say again that I loved her and will miss her beyond words. And I thank the good Lord for setting us down in that little yellow brick house on North Trenton across the street from this special woman who became my dearest friend. God bless you, Lee. Love you dearly.